we had somehow traveled 3,000 miles to attend the biggest sporting event in North America, and we were about to miss the game. Bestie, pick up. I officially lost my mind weeks ago, but I've been too embarrassed to tell you until now. I flew to Seattle for the FIFA World Cup, and I didn't even have a ticket to the game. You want to talk about unhinged? Would a sane person get in a plane, fly thousands of miles across the continent for vibes? But was it worth it? Looking back, I thought I was flying to Seattle to understand sports people. Instead, I think I flew there because I was chasing a feeling. And that turned out to be a much riskier experiment than I expected. I just didn't know that yet. Babe, the World Cup may be officially over, but I think we're all still processing, right? As one of you put it, no singing, no bagpipes, no Vikings. Who knew nostalgia could manifest so quickly? And if this is your first time here, hi, I'm Lonnie. I started this channel because I was trying to understand my husband's completely irrational relationship with this sport, for research. It was all very scientific. And then the World Cup happened. And, well, I already told you about how my little World Cup experiment failed in spectacular fashion, but I didn't tell you the dumbest thing that it convinced me to do. A few weeks ago, I made a video called "The World Cup is Doing Something Weird to America," and I stand by that. Because every time I opened my phone, there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Fan festivals, streets completely shut down, Scotland's Tartan Army invading host cities, entire airplanes doing the Viking row, full stadiums pretending Wonderwall is a good song, and Americans remembering that playing the world sport is actually a fun time. I mean, millions who had never paid attention to soccer before were suddenly planning their entire week around kickoffs. Every host city became the center of the universe, which was honestly messing with my head. Because in the months leading up to this whole thing, we all kept hearing Americans don't care about football. Americans don't pay attention to... Yet somehow, millions kept pouring into these celebrations, and they didn't look like paid actors to me. The closest I'd gotten to that feeling was hunting down watch parties around town, which were respectable. But every time I saw a wild scene from the stands, I had this weird little voice in the back of my head saying, I need to see that. Then fate, or poor decision-making, intervened. My husband already had business travel planned to Portland, and I'd always wanted to see the Pacific Northwest. But let's be honest, for every work trip, I whine like a puppy dog. Please, I want to go. It was just a crazy idea in the background, and the deadline for that decision had passed weeks ago, so... Well, then, Team USA kept doing well, and every match made the delusion a little stronger, and my grip on my sanity a little looser. Then, the United States beat Bosnia and Herzegovina to move on to the round of 16, which would be played in Seattle on the day before my husband was expected to report to Portland. In the heat of the moment, I looked at him and I said, book it. No spreadsheet, no pros and cons list, no budget discussion, no itinerary, just YOLO. Was it curiosity? FOMO? World Cup fever? My new YouTuber status convincing me that this would make a great story. I still don't know. I don't know. I just knew if I didn't go, I would spend the rest of my life wondering what it felt like to be there. Yes, that is dramatic. But the World Cup may come around every 4 years. But your country hosting the World Cup, that could be a once in a lifetime situation. So, yes. Barely 1 week before the match, we changed his flight and booked mine, which turns out to be a terrible time to book a flight into the biggest sporting event in North America. But I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to reconsider because there was exactly one seat left for me. 5 in the morning in the very back of the plane. And I worked the night before. And I don't sleep on planes. Do you? By the time we landed in Seattle, I'd slept maybe 2 hours. And by kickoff, I'd been officially awake for 22. No nap, barely food, which, in hindsight, explains a lot. One, why my footage is so sparse. My hands were shaking and I kept double tapping the record button, which, as you know, just does the opposite of record. And when I thought I was recording, I wasn't. And when I thought I wasn't, I was. Awesome. Have you ever done that? This also happened to me in Maui, by the way, and coincidentally, why we don't have any wedding footage. Thanks, Uncle Mike. I love you. Also, my new mic. I hadn't figured it out yet. Lovely. So, you're going to come along in this adventure. Anyway, sleep deprivation might also explain this terrible choice. Because apparently, I had watched too much TikTok. Because I saw the plane. On the back of the plane, I saw it being loaded with all of these Team USA fans. And by the end of the flight, I thought, we're going to do a chant. They didn't do a chant. So I started the chant. Nobody did the chant. My compatriots failed me. I dishonored myself, my bloodline. I brought shame to my country, and I think I cursed them. Anyway, but that was just the beginning of the shenanigans, because the second we landed, I realized something. This is not going to be a normal trip. Running on 1 brain cell per hour of sleep, we land in Seattle, which is when I had my first thought of the day. We have made a terrible mistake. I booked this trip only days before the biggest sporting event in North America, like an absolute winner. So naturally, everyone else had the same exact idea. We'll figure it out. Plus, it worked out that we have a couple hours buffer before the match, so that's plenty of time to check in and shower and eat and nap and orient ourselves, and then we'll pregame at a bar where the couple next to us will say, hey, you know what? Actually, we can't make it to the match tonight. Would you like to buy the tickets from us? And then we'll reality check. This was the line for the shuttle to the rental car. Not the line to get the rental car, the line for the shuttle to get to the rental car place. It was honestly impressive. We started to follow the guy holding the end of the line sign as he walked, I don't know, a quarter of a mile down, and no. If we were delayed at any point, we might not even make it into town, making this whole thing a colossal waste. My husband and I looked at each other and immediately had the same thought. Run! We literally abandoned the shuttle idea. So we ran to the airport's rideshare area and we grabbed an Uber and we made it to the rental car place, somehow beat the rush, and it worked, which was dangerous because now The universe has rewarded my stupidity. It was setting a terrible precedent. So, we finally get our rental car and we start driving into downtown Seattle. First of all, whew, this place is gorgeous. I have never been to this part of the country before. And I don't know if it's because I hadn't slept or because I was already emotionally compromised, but everything just looked cinematic. Then we drove past the stadium, and that's the moment when it stopped feeling like an Instagram reel and started feeling real. Suddenly, we hit traffic. Cars barely moving. That time buffer we thought we had to nap, to make decisions? No. We don't have tickets. We don't have plans. We don't have a place to watch the game. We've just flown 3,000 miles entirely powered by delusion. Yeah. Well, we make it downtown, and suddenly, I can't breathe. There are people everywhere. Like, not Friday night at Times Square everywhere. End of the world movie, but everyone's wearing red, white, and blue everywhere. At this point, I genuinely started questioning my life choices. So I start filming to do something with my hands. And as we get about a block away from our hotel, I hit record because, oh, cool, they've even wrapped the city buses in Team USA flair. And no, friend, listen to my husband.
Turn right. Whoa, is this our freaking team?
Holy shit, that was our team. Staying at the hotel next to ours? Noted. Forgotten. We finally check into the hotel. Okay, we have one success. We have a room. That's it. Great. No itinerary. No reservations. No fan zone passes. No match tickets. Just vibes. So naturally, we decide, let's just walk. Maybe we'll find someone selling 2 tickets, somehow not for $5,000. Maybe we'll stumble onto a cool fan zone that's somehow not at capacity. Maybe the universe would continue rewarding terrible decisions. Well, you remember what I immediately forgot. Team USA was staying in the hotel next to ours. But here's the embarrassing part. As if there's just one. Because I was a functioning zombie by that point, my brain never put together. If the players are staying here, then they would have to leave to go there. I guess I just subconsciously assumed they'd have some secret underground tunnel, helicopter extraction, Batman elevator, something. Because, they're the national team, especially with all the controversy. Which, if you want my full take, I talked about the whole Balogun trump card situation in another video. Watch it after, because, whew. Anyway, so we walk outside, and there were like 50 people just standing there, waiting. And I'm thinking, I wonder what they're waiting for. Oh, they're waiting for our team. So naturally, I told myself, listen, if you can get just one really cool shot, one for you, then maybe this whole insane, completely irresponsible trip will have been worth it. I won't get to see them crush Belgium, but maybe. And somehow, by complete dumb luck, thank you, universe, I ended up right up against the security barrier. Front row.
I literally have a front row seat. This is insane. Look.
What? Which felt amazing for like 30 seconds. Because then more people came, and more people, and more people. And all of a sudden, I remembered something.
When I was a kid, my mom took me to go see Bryan Adams. I didn't even know who Bryan Adams was, but whatever. Live music, amphitheater vibes. Great. After the concert, we waited by the barricade because my mom wanted an autograph, and I'm right up at the front. And then Bryan Adams came out, and the crowd surged, and the crowd pushed, and my mom started screaming. She genuinely thought that I was going to get crushed. It's happened. Well, she screamed so much that a security guard came, and he lifted me over the barricade.
To safety. And Bryan Adams came over to make sure I was okay, which is still objectively one of the weirdest stories I own. So, standing outside this hotel, against another metal barricade, with a crowd growing behind me, I had this tiny Latina voice in the back of my head screaming, "Not again."
Honestly, I'm kind of terrified that I'm going to get crushed when they come out. Pray for me.
Well, thankfully, nobody got trampled. But what happened next somehow was even more surreal. Because while we were waiting, a miniature drama started to unfold. Have you ever become weirdly invested in a complete stranger's job performance? Because I have now. There I am, standing outside the hotel, running entirely on caffeine, vibes, and approximately 2 functioning brain cells. And I'm so hungry. And my husband lovingly gave up his spot to go grab us some food. And after about 10 minutes, I look around and I realize something. Nobody here actually knows when the team is coming out. We're all just existing. And I couldn't possibly leave. So naturally, I appointed myself lead FBI agent. My mission? Figure out when Team USA was leaving using absolutely zero information whatsoever. My first clue, this distinguished gentleman. I didn't know his name, but in my mind, he was running the show. Because unlike the rest of us, he looked like he actually knew something. Look at him. Professional, focused, moist nose. Incredible work ethic. 10 out of 10, deserved a raise. Oops, she even had her own business card.
Oh my god, they gave me her card.
A pro. Then, very important people started arriving. And every few minutes, someone important would walk inside, and we'd all go, "Is this it?" Nope. False alarm. Then another person. No. More security. Wait. Nope. False alarm. Then another person. Nope. Another SUV. Nope.
The hydration has arrived. That has to mean it's within minutes.
More security. Wait. They're cheering inside. Here they come. No. Mm-mm. At this point, we had become a hive mind. Complete strangers, collectively overanalyzing everyone's body language. I became convinced that the security guards knew, obviously, but they weren't talking, which meant I had to read their micro expressions. I have never in my entire life become so emotionally invested in a man's eyebrows. One guard smiled. "They're coming!" He checked his watch. "They're definitely coming!" Someone adjusted their earpiece. "This is not a drill!" Looking back, I had become absolutely feral. And this guy, maybe I'd been reading too much romantasy, or maybe he had, because I had the distinct impression this young man believed himself an assassin in training, just waiting for someone to finally make his day. At one point, one of the officers noticed me and gave me a sticker, which I accepted with the pride of someone receiving a Purple Heart. Sir, thank you for your service. I will treasure this forever. Then, the helicopters showed up, which really wasn't helping my mental stability, because every single new thing felt like evidence that something huge was about to happen. Then, a shift. Something changed. The security guards stopped looking relaxed. They spread out. Radios came up. People started moving with purpose. Oh, this wasn't imagination anymore. This was it. The doors opened. I don't know what I expected. Maybe huge smiles, waving, signing autographs, I don't know. Maybe pumping up the fans. But instead, they looked heavy, focused, quiet. Honestly, almost defeated already. I thought maybe this is just what elite athletes look like on match day. You know, locked in. I don't know, I wouldn't know. But as we'd all find out later, no. The vibes were off. Something felt off. I'm not going to get into all of it here. Like I said, I talked about it in another video. That is a conversation by itself. But standing there, watching them walk past, I remember thinking, shit. And just like that, they were gone. Which left us standing there, staring at each other, realizing we still don't have anywhere to watch the game. Okay, well, first we need to take a shower and put on our Team USA stuff.
I swore I wouldn't do this. I haven't washed this shirt since June. I have worn it to watch every USA match. And we haven't lost yet. Who am I? The great cosmic punishment. I have become what I mocked. We better win, or they'll have to revoke my girl card.
Okay. And now we still don't have anywhere to watch the game. So, naturally, we did what any responsible adult would do. We followed the crowd. Which, in hindsight, is how every apocalyptic movie starts. According to official reports, there were 500,000 people in downtown Seattle that day. And when they all start walking in the same direction, it's gotta be pretty hard to get lost, right? I mean, navigationally at least. And this was the moment that changed everything for me. Because I had never been around that many people before, like ever in my life. I had never seen the volume of bodies. I mean, this was just an entire city becoming one giant tailgate. And normally, being surrounded by this many people, especially this many carrying flags, would send me directly into fight or flight. But instead, everyone was just happy. People were taking pictures together, asking each other where they'd traveled from, laughing and chanting and drinking and partying and wishing each other luck. USA fans, Belgium fans, families, kids on their parents' shoulders, complete strangers acting like neighbors. And that's when it hit me. This was what I had been chasing. Not the Instagram story or the clout. The feeling that for one afternoon, everyone had agreed to care about the same thing. And admittedly, That felt kind of magical. And oh, did I suddenly have a raging need to experience just one goal together with thousands of USA fans. So the hunt for a spot intensified. At this point, I was already imagining what the city was going to look like after we won. 70,000 Americans pouring out of that stadium to join the hundreds of thousands of us partying in the streets. Everybody losing their minds together, singing, hugging strangers, the whole city exploding. Ah, we were going to win. I was ready. It was all happening cinematically in my mind, which is exactly when my husband disappeared. Not emotionally, physically. Because there were so many people, you were no longer walking, you were being carried. And certain intersections basically became human traffic jams. You couldn't move, you couldn't turn around, you couldn't even see where you were trying to go. At one point, I got swept in one direction, my husband got swept in another, and naturally, every person in Seattle is trying to upload their Instagram story at the exact same time, so there was no cell service, no texts, no phone calls, just bodies, which is not ideal when you're in a city that you've never been to before and for some reason didn't come up with an emergency plan with your spouse like a rational person should do. So I started to hyperventilate. Um, but eventually, I climbed up onto this little, I don't know what you call it, just so I could see over everybody's heads. Looking back, I probably looked like a meerkat. But eventually, we found each other again, which was wonderful because now we had a brand new problem. We still had absolutely nowhere to watch the game. The fan zones, full, completely closed, not another human allowed in. So we thought, okay, let's just find a sports bar. Like civilized people. At least we can have some AC and perhaps a cold beer. Except the whole reason that any one of those places even had room in the first place is because they also lost their internet connection. So they weren't showing the game either. We had somehow traveled 3,000 miles to attend the biggest sporting event in North America, and we were about to miss the game. So we just started running toward the stadium. Then, kickoff happened. And we couldn't see anything, but we heard a massive eruption from inside. Then the military flyover roared over our heads. And just for a second, that thought came screaming back. We have made the biggest mistake of our lives. We had traveled all this way, spent all this money, and somehow we couldn't even watch. Couldn't even get it on our phones. It was worse than just being home on the couch with our dog and all of my brain cells. But then my husband did something that honestly deserves to be studied. He noticed one of the traffic officers standing there in the blazing heat, directing absolute chaos. And he walked over, he handed her an ice cold bottle of water, thanked her, and politely asked if she knew anywhere else we might actually be able to watch. Bestie, kindness remains undefeated. Because she smiled and she goes, "Try over there by Chinatown. Most people don't know about that fan zone." Mm-mm. So once again, we looked at each other and ran. Not gracefully, not athletically, just with the determination of two people chasing one last chance to belong. And somehow, we made it! Somehow, against all odds, we actually made it. A good 15 minutes in, and Belgium had already scored, but we're there. We made it. We're among our people. It wasn't the best spot. Honestly, I could barely see the screen. It was like a postage stamp. I had to zoom my phone camera in order to even see what was going on, but we did it. We're here. At that point, I didn't care. Because after everything, airport, traffic, rental cars, no tickets, no signal, running across Seattle, we were finally exactly where we were supposed to be. This was the feeling. Thousands of people holding their breath together. Every pass, every tackle, every chance, everybody reacting as one. And I finally understood why people chase this. And then it happened. There it is. That is what I came for. Complete strangers, high-fiving and hugging each other, cheering, celebrating, elated. Perhaps a far cry from the party I expected, but I remember looking around and thinking, this, this must be why people fly across oceans. This is why they follow their team. This is why people save for years. Because for one tiny moment, everyone believed the exact same impossible thing. We believed. Maybe the people on the plane didn't believe, but we believed in that moment. I looked around at this supposedly not a football country, at my fellow countrymen who weren't supposed to care, at thousands of people holding their breath together. And I really think that something shifted this World Cup. But that's something to unpack in another video because Belgium scored. And you could actually feel the air leave. It was the strangest thing. Thousands of people, and suddenly, nobody knew what to say. Well, Belgium fans knew what to say because they weren't just better, they were relentless. Every attack felt dangerous. Every mistake felt enormous. And our guys, they just never looked like the team who brought us here. You know how sometimes before someone even says anything, you can tell they've had a really bad day? That's what it felt like watching them. Like they were carrying something long before kickoff. And like I told you, after seeing them walk out to the bus, I don't think that was a coincidence. And by halftime, nobody said it, but everybody knew. The party wasn't happening. And as you know, it only got worse from there. So we started walking back, and this absolutely broke my heart. Because remember, just a couple hours earlier, these exact same streets had felt like the happiest place on earth. Now, nobody was talking. People were still carrying the flags, but somehow they felt heavier. You could hear shoes, traffic, the occasional helicopter. That's it. An entire city walking back together, quietly. And I think that's when I finally understood being a fan of a team. Not because we won, we didn't. Not because it was fun, it wasn't. But because somehow thousands of complete strangers had shared the exact same heartbreak at the exact same time, and nobody had to explain it. Of course, eventually, somebody had to ask, where are we eating? Which turned out to be another disaster because apparently, if you wait until 70,000 people leave a stadium looking for dinner, you're going to have a bad time. Every restaurant, full. Every bar, full. There were not as many food trucks or food stalls as you would expect. And everywhere we walked, people just looked at us like, oh, sweetie, no. So, after wandering around, hangry, exhausted, emotionally damaged, we finally give up and we found one table waiting for us back at our hotel, where the menu looked like a mortgage application. $180 plates. Babe, at those prices, I expect Jose Andres himself to personally tuck me into bed afterwards. But that walk gave me time to think. What had I actually just experienced?
Babe, that was intense. And I am running on 2 hours of sleep. I've been awake for about 20 hours now, running on empty, and I have about 3 brain cells left. But I just had to say, you know what? I don't even know. I don't even know what I have to say. We're walking to dinner right now. I think we're all just going to collectively process. I can't wait to show you all of the incredible footage I got. I still can't believe that we're here.
I kept asking myself, was it worth it? Yeah, actually, weirdly, yeah, it was. Absolutely. Which is concerning. Because 6 months ago, I would have told you football people are insane. I still think you're insane. It's just, I, I think I understand you a little better. I thought people traveled for sport. Turns out they travel for each other. And sport is just the excuse. And somewhere between the cheering and the crowds and the singing and the chanting, I stopped asking, why do people like this? And I started asking, what else have I been rolling my eyes at that I just don't understand yet? That, babe, is the transformation. Curiosity. And the biggest surprise wasn't actually Seattle. It was all of you. I thought this little experiment would mostly attract long suffering wives and girlfriends, and instead, thousands of lifelong football fans pulled up a chair. Almost every day, one of you says some version of, you reminded me what it felt like to fall in love with football. And that means more to me than you probably realize. Because maybe that's what Unhinged United is. Not football experts, not soccer beginners, just curious people sitting at the same table. Which brings me to my current problem. Because the comments keep saying things like, ladies and gentlemen, we got her. I would just like the record to show this experiment is still ongoing. This was the World Cup, okay? A once every 4 years fever dream, national pride, bucket list trips, cities becoming communities. Surely I can go back to making fun of you all now, right? Because I am not willingly spending my weekend mornings emotionally compromised by grown men chasing a ball, okay? That is where I draw the line. Anyway, apparently, Mickey Van de Ven has returned to Tottenham, so purely for research purposes, I'll see you in the Premier League. Love you. Bye.